Hi, and welcome to another Legally Insane News podcast. This time I'm actually speaking with Ernie Hancock about the recently leaked and currently viral release of the director's cut of Big Trouble in Little Quartzsite. I know a lot of you guys have seen that in the recent days. It's only been up for less than a week and a half, and it's already at something like 65,000 views. Interesting turn of events. I was not planning on releasing it, but here we are. I am releasing this interview with Ernie to offer some background for all of those who decided to subscribe to the YouTube and Rumble channels, as well as to my Patreon supporters that have recently signed up, because it offers a lot of background to the documentary. And I know that a lot of comments and questions have come out about that. I can't get to everyone's questions, but I definitely try to do my best. Feel free to leave more comments and questions for this show that's being aired right now. And let me know what you might be still curious about, what wasn't addressed, things like that. We really do cover a lot of background, but I know that, I can't get to everything in time. Probably all those questions will be answered because of the update I'm about to tell you about. And for that, go to legallyinsanenews.com or legallyinsanefilms.com and sign up for all the updates. There are both free and paid subscriptions available there. And in the wake of this latest interview with Freedom's Phoenix, that's Ernie's show, I've decided to release all of the unreleased interviews with the good cops, the allegedly bad cops, players behind the scenes, and all of the people that you see in the film. All of those will be posted in part here on my video channels and in their complete form over at legallyinsanenews.com and legallyinsanefilms.com. So head over there to see those in their completed editions. I'll start releasing those in the coming days with the newly minted Legally Insane News podcast releases right here on this video channel. So without further ado, here is my interview with the longtime activist Ernest Hancock of the Freedom's Phoenix.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
No fear! No fear, no fear, no fear, no fear. You're declared your independence from me, Ernest Hancock, from the Sonoran Desert. Well, just west of us here on Interstate I-10, which is between Phoenix and L.A., is Quartzsite. Small town that, they have a north-south road that goes down Mako, and that makes it a traffic location, just saying. And it's a bunch of desert. There's a lot of potential. It's out in the middle of Leave Me Aloneism. And every year, Rock and Gem Show for decades been out there, and 100,000 RVs. At least used to. I don't know what it does now, but it's a lot. I mean, it's like a big, giant Burning Man for senior citizens. That's what it is. Well, in the 90s, when they incorporated it into a municipality, it was because you do a municipality, you get some money. Now we got to have like sewer systems and stuff, and mandate government grants of whatever, and there would be some parking tickets we need to have. So we need to have we need a cooperative town manager. You need a city attorney that's willing to prosecute any dissenters. You got to have a corrupt chief of police to go arrest them and get some. You got to have a municipal judge say guilty, guilty, guilty. And you have a clerk to make sure you're doing petition. Well, I don't think you can oppose this. You're not allowed. And it just became a thing. There was a newspaper that was out there early on, just kind of promoting kind of the vendor sites, kind of like a penny saver for the crowd. And a guy named Big John. And we'd have half-page, full-page ads for, the radio show, Declare Your Independence, and with Ernest Hancock, and we have, Freedom's Phoenix, and we do. And finally, it got into, they didn't like him writing about some of the things that were going on. They still don't. In newspaper, they don't like it. It's First Amendment thing, be gone, which is what really started a lot of the opposition. Well, what happened was they came back and they said, you have to have a license, pay a license, get a permit, and we get to say no for publishing a newspaper in Quartzsite. Well, that came to the attention of the Goldwater Institute, which is kind of a offshoot of Cato here in Arizona, and we directed to that. And, a little lawsuit action here. They changed that, but it wasn't the intent behind it. Was certainly police cars with guys in it and guns and pull you over and you get a ticket because you're not doing it right. So this became a thing. We had FM transmitters. We'd put flyers on all the RVs, and we'd go park in City Hall parking lot and do a live show, highlight and whatever. Had big, giant rallies out there. Then there was a big one after a woman named Jennifer Jones, recognized by the mayor that the people put in, gets up, stands, starts talking about what was going on. Boom, gets arrested. This made it was on Australian television. This went all over. America's what the crap? Then Stuart Rhodes and Oath Keepers came out. Jordan Page comes out and plays. Freedom's Phoenix would go out there and we're live broadcasting, having hundreds of people. Those don't care. They go, yeah, when this dies down, we're going to do what we want to do anyway, and we got a fine for you. Put you out of business. Code enforcement. Do it. It was a perfect example of what happens when you give shiny badges to sociopaths. They're there. They don't care what happens to the people. It's just, we got a pot of money and it's ours now. So that's what was going on. After all of this, and breaks a lot of news and so on, Kyle O'Donnell, he's a director from Legally Insane Films, and it was of interest to him. We're going to find out why. He's a published author of several books, Topography of Being, The Aspie's Bible, The System is Rigged. Start off with that one. Then former journalism professor for the American University System. He's released and produced, directed 36 films, released more than 100,000 commercial images from 43 countries on 4 continents, worked at 7 universities in 5 countries, including 2 American campuses, 4 campuses in Southeast and Far East Asia, and 1 campus in Eastern Europe, 3 undergraduate degrees in psychology from Old Dominion, environmental sciences, Indiana University, and journalism, Indiana University. Well, a perpetual film student guy. Master of Science in Communication, State University of New York. MFA, PhD, terminal, post-grad, University of Maine. The guy's got, some initials after his name. But for some reason, all around the world, Quartzsite. Quartzsite's got a push pin in it. Quartzsite, it had a push pin in it. And it was for so many reasons that it was just a good story. Now, several years ago, he did Big Trouble in Little Quartzsite. Now, give me a minute here, Kyle, and you can fill in all the blanks. From our perspective, what happened is it was a good story that people rise up and then they did this and that and, everything's all good and kind of, no, it's not. This is not over. This is not. But he needed to make a film. He had hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and multiple, and oh my God, interviews. And he packaged it in a way to be more palatable to, let's go make some money. We get a bunch of film festivals, give you awards, and you get showed, and then, maybe it'll make it on Netflix or Amazon. Well, I don't know how that did or what, we'll talk about it, but my criticism was there's a much bigger story here. There's a big giant, oh my God, how this really works and what happened, and the sociopaths, attracted to shiny badges and silk ties. We're going to explain it to you, and they got an army of going up against the army of public opinion of the people. So he went back and he redid the movie. He sends it to a friend. There was something, just kind of, and all of a sudden, that one went viral. Boom! He sends me a message. He's going, "Hey, Ernie, man, damn, like, I guess you're right." We got another story here, and it's continuing. The lawsuits resurrect themselves again. You're not allowed. You can't. And I rescind my permission to use my whatever. So that's where we are now, in the midst of all of the like news, with its child daycare. It's in senior transportation. It's in Minnesota. Then they find it in Tennessee, Texas, Louisiana, California. It is just enormous, based on the same template, because they can. So this interview, I'll let him go ahead and tell his story, what he's realized, what he's learned, what's happening, what's going on, what kind of legal action there are, because we got the Attorney General's office, county, attorneys, the state legislators. It's becoming a thing. But is there really a fix? And what is the problem to begin with? Let's delegate authority to people to fix stuff for us. That's a problem. But, but what I'm really concerned with is, by the time we get done, I want to find out what, I don't know. I guess Kyle, I don't know if he leans left, right, whatever, but he definitely got an education, and I want to know what he's learned from his perspective and what he has on tape. This is murder for hire, FBI faking the murder so they can get somebody that put out a contract on to get, didn't they, and then they get released, because, it is amazing. But undercurrent of the evil that we're up against, the mentality of these people, is what's of interest to me. You see where I want to go, Kyle?
Yeah, I do. First of all, thanks for the intro. You're right. I don't even know where to start. You gave me a lot of tentacles. I guess I'll start at the very beginning. I was not planning to release this because I was still working on a series that really dives into, there's more than just a League of Cities and Towns, but I'll center it on that for this conversation. So this year's been funky. My dad, he had a 6-valve heart surgery and followed by 2 knee surgeries. So this year's been kind of funky. I had to go back and, take care of family business, did a bunch of traveling for another incorporation that I started. As I left it about a year ago, taking care of business this year kind of put it down. And then, as you were saying, I was at a friend's house while back visiting my dad, who I knew her from high school. I was just going to give it to her as a gift, just catching up after 25 years. And we couldn't get it on her TV unless I made it public. So I was like, okay, so I made it public so she could get it on her Roku. And I was like, we only watched about half of it because, as you know, it's a pretty long documentary. And so the next day I called her and said, all right, well, go ahead and finish it tonight because I'm going to take it back offline. She's like, well, okay, got one more day in. And sure enough, 3 days in, it was already at 15,000 views or something without any promotion, without any social media mentions or anything like that. And it really just caught fire. So at that point I was like, well, it doesn't really make any sense to turn it off. Whoever was going to see it that I didn't want to see has probably seen it by now anyway. So I let it ride. Yeah. And it's still climbing. I think last time I checked, it was something like 50,000 views. It's only been up for like a week and a half. Not even that, I think just over a week, but, yeah. So
from where, why do you think, what's the comments? How does what launched it?
So I think that right now, more than like a few years ago when I initially wanted to release it, people have their radars on for corruption. Like right now is a really hot topic to dig underneath the skin of small town politics, mid-sized town politics, and find out what's really happening. Where's our money going? Why are our coffers constantly empty? Why do municipalities?
They need a new bond election every week.
Right. Yeah. And there seems like every time they have one of these emergency tax hikes or whatever, it's ratified. it's totally legal on paper, but what's happening is basically there's a money laundering campaign happening. The Ohio actually, I think, was the latest one to get busted doing this, and I think that was just yesterday or the day before. So it happens a whole bunch of different ways, but the recipe is always the same. And once you know the equation for what you need to get access to those town coffers, I mean, let's just pretend that this only affects small towns in America. If you can imagine how many small towns there are in America, let's just say they only stole $100,000 each. Nationwide, that's still annually an enormous number. And the League of Cities and Towns, I think it's called the NLC.org or something. The home address of the headquarters is like 3 blocks from the White House. That's how big we're talking. I think they're like the 1300 block of Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're across the street from the state Capitol building.
Right. So, yeah, and interestingly enough, the Arizona Municipal League, which is what it was originally called, the Arizona Municipal League, was actually founded in 1937, 2 years before the Warbuck brothers decided that the world needed war. So, if that tells you anything, is that a good start?
Yeah, get everybody on board. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way, and this is the interesting thing about quartzite, is it's layered in the same way it's layered everywhere else.
Right. You
got the spaghetti junction of hands doing different things, paperwork going in different directions. You mentioned last time we talked, you mentioned the water district in Sedona, and there was another gal who was on the board in Payson or something that now she's not even involved with it anymore because she just kind of got run out of town because she kept asking pesky questions, and is now in Mexico, I think is what you said.
Oh, that was Sholo. Yeah.
Sholo, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, I showed up. I was an outsider. These guys, knew. I mean, when all this was happening, I was overseas, right? So I couldn't have possibly had any ties to the town. So I think people were at that time motivated to talk to me because initially the people associated with the town council were thinking I was going to shoot like a tourism video or something, and that's, I didn't misrepresent myself. I just think they've got this checkered past, and they colored it in our interview in a way they didn't know was, I was eventually going to get to. Right. Well, yeah, but they all said what they said, and I constantly get one of the comments I got recently was from Mark Goldberg, who, when I meet these people face to face, I got a lot of respect for them, right? They're people trying to, as far as I know, they're just people trying to keep their town together and, push the tourism agenda and, blah, blah, blah. But, the more interviews I have, I'm going to take the cumulative message of the film in the direction of the cumulative average of those interviews, what they actually tell me and what the most interesting story is. And while I'm interviewing them, I'm sitting here, they've signed a release that they know their information is going to go into a documentary. They sit down, they talk, they give me their story, and then when I publish it, they tell me I don't want this story out. I'm like, wait a minute, why did you tell me then? It blows my mind that they actually just came back and swapped on me. I don't understand that part unless you start putting in the people that are making those kinds of complaints are the people that are tied to the town council. And one of the bell ringers when I was filming this, and I did not get it recorded, unfortunately, but Jim Ferguson, who I believe is still the town manager there, when I went in to pitch the town, I actually pitched him, and this is before I got to the bottom of a lot of it. I have to admit that. This is an important, caveat here, but before I got too far in, I pitched the town on making like just a town-wide film about the town. I think it was I think I threw him an estimate of something like between $3,000 and $5,000. I can't remember the number, but then it would show at the local retirement. What is it called? The Quartzsite Convention Center there. They have it's called something, but and he was like, "Oh yeah, well we'll just borrow it out of the HERF fund and make sure it gets balanced out later." And he said it right there in front of me, and this was 2020, I believe, or maybe even 2021, which means to me that when the councils, you know,
it was their piggy bank,
right? Well, picking up from the story that your audience might not know, it's like this was all supposed to have been solved. They just got done having a war about this with the locals, who had a shift in power, and they got rid of the previous council, and now we've got a new council, and everybody is there, and they're still doing it. And I'm not saying that everybody knows what perhaps the town manager is doing. I don't want to point fingers without serious corroborated statements, right? Because it was just the one meeting that I had with Jim. But a lot of the people that talk to me about the crazy problems, this is before I ever even heard your name, were all telling me, you got to look into HERF, you got to look into HERF. And then that's what started it all. And so that's what started it. That's what started the whole thing. So what I think is, if I can use that as an example, when the recipe, you can go to any town in America, and the recipe is this: you find a fund or a revenue stream or a way to make revenue, or let's say in some cases they pay, quote unquote, a reliable engineering company to do, quote unquote, safety studies, and these safety studies just happen to cost, an exorbitant amount of money, $400,000 or something, and 2 weeks go by, you don't hear anything. 3 weeks go by, you don't hear anything, and the town council, quote unquote, forgets about it. Or maybe if they get something back, it's like a 9-page study one guy did in the back office of some treatment facility, or something, and so the money just evaporates into something that is either they either hope it doesn't get checked, or it arrives manifested in some form that makes it look like some work has been done. And so the tricky part for the series that I was trying to make is finding out what happens between the time the engineers get that check and where that money then gets disseminated. Does it go back to the council? Does it go to the League of Cities and Towns? Does it yada, yada, yada? League of Cities and Towns probably doesn't have to do much because they get so much money in sponsorships and memberships. They take the council members out to these lavish, 4-diamond resorts and, treat them like kings, and then do what they call, training, proposals and how to deal with certain contracts that might come in, and what's good, how to sort of, quote unquote, cut through the red tape of getting things approved, and all in the public eye. That's the craziest part. It's all in the public eye, and either you are sold this magic dream because you are a proud local patriot that wants to help their community, or you're actually, exactly what's going on, and you're just going along with it because it's extremely profitable. That's basically what I've got down. And like let's say that you are a developing town, like Quartzsite got millions and millions of dollars given back to them every year, which is an inordinate amount for a town of, at the time, I think 1,500 to 2,000 people year round. They got this enormous money back because HERF is actually the Highway User Revenue Fund, and it's a tax on gas and other things from gas stations that goes to the capital and then goes back to the town so that they can build up their roads and all of their road adjacent construction, like sewage or curbs and things like that. But if you drive through Quartzsite, most of the roads outside of the way, maybe like dirt. I don't know, half a mile, are all dirt roads. Yeah, like So there's
people went there for that, to get away from all that crap. And it was just a pool of money that if they incorporated it as a municipality, because it's the only gas station between California and Phoenix. And it was just guaranteed, ooh, we're going to get some. And then, of course, you got people that want to get a monopoly on the water. They want to, because they can. If you create a government, it creates a mechanism by which you can bleed people in a gazillion different ways. And Quartzsite was a neon flashing example of that. And I know that every single person that you talk to was either, yep, we're here for the grift, or we're here up against the grift. And then it became, violent. So how much of that did you, and what was it that drew you there to begin with? How did you even know this story existed? You're overseas, you come back, let's go to Quartzsite. How did that happen?
So my mom got sick, and I came back to help her initially, and that was in late 2018. By the time trying to give you the Cliff's Notes, there's a lot, but so she got better, and then by the time she got better, though, the window had closed for me to return for the next academic year. So I just decided at that time the van life and bus life thing was really big. It was kind of blowing up. Everybody was taking school buses and converting them into live aboard, RVs and things. And I said, why not? I've always wanted to do that. I've got a year on my hands. I still had paychecks coming in, so I'll just build mine. I bought this airport shuttle bus, and I built it out, converted it. And I picked up my dad, who had retired the year before, and we just shot a documentary from the inside of the van lifer's perspective of all national and state parks in the South and the Southwest. And, you get into this community and you start talking to them, and
Quartzsite keeps coming up.
Yeah, Quartzsite's the place everybody gets. It's like the winter mecca if you're a nomad. And so that's what brought me to Quartzsite. And that wound up, I started filming just interviews out in the desert of all these guys. And then I decided to get the locals' perspective of what happens to this town. It's extremely unique in the winter where everybody else is shoveling snow off their driveways. It's like balmy and 70 degrees in Quartzsite. So it's nice. And so I go in and I talk to the Chamber of Commerce president, who happens to be a short little lady named Shanana Rain Golden Bear. And she gives me this incredible story about the town, its history, and it we've got great stuff here, and me and my partner moved here, and yada yada yada. We were snowbirds, but she was nervous the whole interview. She was kind of pensive, and I asked her why. At the end of the interview, I was like, "Thanks for that great talk, but why were you so nervous? You don't strike me as somebody who would be nervous." And she was like, "Well, I kept waiting for you to ask about this other part about Quartzsite's history, and I'm not sure if I'm not sure how happy I am about how this turned out." But I asked her, "What other story?" And she was like, "Come back tomorrow and we'll talk." And the next day I showed up, and she filled 5 of my memory cards all the way up, and just gave me this 5-hour interview, and it was nuts. And she told me murder plots had started the town, and a scam incorporation by this sinister so-and-so, and blah blah blah, and so obviously that became a little bit more important than my travel documentary with my father. Even though I've still got a lot of that stuff in the can, it's just it pales in comparison. And so how that evolved, to answer that question, is she gives me one story. As a journalist, obviously you gotta get some, yeah, you gotta substantiate. She's made some pretty crazy claims, right? So I was like, okay, give me the names of a few people that will, corroborate what you're saying. And so I go and I interview those people, and each one of those people not only corroborates the crazy story the previous person told me, they also told me a crazy story of their own and gave me 3 names of the people that can corroborate that story. And
yeah, no, you got a lot of people in there, that's for sure.
So it's really just a matter of time. I mean, anybody who would go down there and spend as much time as I spent there would eventually.
How long did you spend doing this, accumulating this? Over how long?
Well, that's another key aspect of when it happened. So I was supposed to go back overseas to Bulgaria and start teaching again that following year, but this is 2019. So what happened in 2019 was a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so year after year, I kept waiting for this crazy pandemic to slow down so I can go back to work. And I just kept getting winter after winter. I would go down there, I'd shoot a few more, 100 more interviews. And yeah, you just start piecing it together. And I spent 6 months shooting, and I'd spend 6 months editing for about 3 years in a row before I got the totality of that story, which is just immense. I mean, if you're talking about an indie production, that's a lot of footage, hundreds of hours, 75 witnesses from 11 towns in Arizona, and a dozen other interviews from 4 other states. And some of them I couldn't get to. Some of them were just on the phone. Some of them, I had my life threatened. I had my brakes cut once some of them found out, who I was and what I was doing. Somebody ran me over right in the middle of town when I was driving through on my motorcycle. Like, it got real.
Well, was there any, not their law enforcement, but I mean, the county attorneys, the state attorneys, I mean, they were all involved in this thing. They come to your aid, or are they worth any information, or their investigations? Did they call you in for depositions? They just, don't talk to Kyle. I mean, what happened?
Well, I think that what was happening to me was kept pretty local. And so the timeline that most people don't understand is that most of this died down. And I don't mean to say it died and stopped completely, but it died down in about 2012 to 2014. I believe that's when Ed Foster was in. I think he was in from 2010 to 2012 or something. And the town kept fighting back, this big fight. And so basically by 2016, 17, the smoke had kind of cleared for the most part. I show up in 2019, 3 years later, and the first eruption of this happened way back in 1989 in September when the town incorporated. So this spans nearly 3 decades. It fizzles, and then I show up. So I think there weren't a lot of eyes beyond the town really gazing in my direction by the time I showed up. I think that's why I was able to get so many of these interviews successfully. I'm pretty sure that's why whoever was coming after me didn't come after me with, it didn't follow me out of Quartzsite. It didn't follow me home, right?
Are there lawsuits against you?
As far as I know, I don't know. I'm not the video itself.
They threaten though, don't they?
They like to do that. They certainly do. And as far as the town attorney goes, that's what I mean when this thing died down. The town attorney at the time, Martin Brennan, he and I, everybody gave me interviews, and everybody gave me their own chunk of what they thought of the town, and I made it. I wanted to balance it out, and I gave everybody their the most impactful things they said. I wanted to make sure that I was at least balanced on that end. So everybody that was claimed to be dirty in this town, I wanted to make sure that they got a say too, right? Like even Brennan, when he is largely alleged to have been this kind of henchman that created this blog that was kind of subverting the town while he was on the job as the town manager. There's just all kinds of things that he's alleged to have done that, if they're true, makes him kind of a dirty player in this. But in the end, his view of it was, we were just trying to keep the town together. We were just trying to keep it going. A lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about us, but and I'm sure if you look at it from the perspective that if you're wined and dined by this big entity like the League of Cities and Towns, they pick you up, they shuttle you out to this amazing resort somewhere where everything's free and it's open bar, and they're going to tell you, what, we don't just care about you. We offer you like complete access to our entire law firm, our big dick law firm here in Phoenix, and we're going to fight for you. We're going to create legislation that it's good for your town, and da da da. Of course, you're going to be like swollen up in that. So if you're coming at an interview with me from that perspective of just having been treated lavishly by these guys, you're going to look at people like Mike Roth and Jennifer Jones and Ed Foster like they're just standing in the way. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Why don't you just get out of the way of progress? Meanwhile,
or take your cut.
Or yeah, there you go. Yeah, or get on board. Which also happened quite a lot in that town. So there's a lot of recipes. There's a lot of ingredients in the recipe that made Quartzsite unique. And Arizona, the Southwest in general, for some strange reason, they really love airing their dirty laundry. And there's a lot of it to air, but it's not limited to the Southwest. I think they're just, I think they're a lot more okay with conflict here. They're not.
Well, what happened, my experience as an activist in the early 90s, you're dealing with legislators and they would say this kind of stuff. Well, my clients, you mean constituents? No, they pay me to do this legislation. Who are you? You're not on board? Why are you here? I mean, because by invitation for me to go interview and talk to somebody, and I get the same experience. They're not just talking, they're bragging. They're, well, this is who I know and what we're going to do and get over it. But then the internet came. And, describe that. The fact that they're this internet thing, that a lot of these small towns and so on, certainly back then before, broadband hit, I can tell you when it happened. It was like 2004 or 5. That's when, here we freaking go. And it was because citizen journalists, people that started newspapers, people that were, and we gave as much voice as we could. The small town where I'm near is Tonopah. It is not incorporated yet, but they're doing the same exact thing for the same exact reasons, and here it comes. So we use a lot of this information. Your film is a great tool, and you share that, and you go, look, man, you do not want to go down this road. You're better off just take care of yourself, be a good neighbor, and, the government can suck it. So this has been an example. How is it now? Now, why did you recut this director's cut, this movie, the way you did it this time? Where did that come from?
Well, let me volley with a question first. What parts of it are you most curious about? Because there's a whole bunch of changes.
Well, the flavor of the first one was kind of almost Hallmarkish. People rise up and they pressed back and they fixed it. And so when we would talk before, I'm going, no, they didn't. I mean, there's a whole. How many hours you got? I guarantee you got a whole nother story in there. Well, it seems
I've
like
got plenty. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it seems like this one was a little bit more. It was bad. And it's still bad, and it's going to be bad until. And we were advocating for disillusionment of the municipality. I tell you, I can cure this. You'll get petition signatures and totally disband the whole municipality and be done with it. Woo, they didn't like that none too much. So this is an example when you talk about what happened in Quartzsite. And I warned you. I said, look, I can tell you how they do it. There's like 4 or 5 positions. Quartzsite is I gave this example. If you take a mirror hologram, like a 3D hologram of like the Statue of Liberty or something, and you drop it and it breaks, you take a small centimeter square and it's the full image in it. It doesn't have just like the bottom right corner. It's the whole thing and the way holograms work, whatever. But the point that I was making is that you take Quartzsite and you just lay it over a state, a county, a country, a world. It's the same thing. You have a town manager, somebody's organizing it, somebody's connected, somebody's getting the money, somebody's getting their USAID grant, federal, whatever the hell, comply with whatever you'll get kind of thing. And the leagues of cities and towns, these organizations know how to do it, and they're going to get their cut. Well, this is what happens every time. And if we examine, because we saw it happen in Florence, Arizona, Apache Junction, all these small communities over the decades, and I already know exactly what's going to happen to Quartzsite. So we covered that and emphasized it as a philosophical thing. It was people, once you create that shiny badge, bad guys are going to be in charge of it. Get over it, here it comes. Well, the people started rising up when they saw all their bills go up. And then they start charging RV parks not by their water usage or 1 meter. Nope, every single faucet gets a fee. Every this, every that, it was just a rape. It was a larceny. It was corruption. And then you add the drug corridor, and you got corrupt cops that, they hire them because they're corrupt. There was like a minimum job requirement. And then you have the entire police force, or a lot of them said, hey, we're done with this, man. We're not part of, no, hell no. And it just started blowing up. So I'm more interested in your experiences around the world. Have you seen this same kind of evil, this entity, this sociopathic behavior of just milking a community and people dry? And we've created a mechanism for them to do it.
So I believe that this happens in more developed nations. That's my kind of knee-jerk reaction to that. But this could very well be. I mean, I taught in Thailand, I taught in Taiwan, I taught in Malaysia, and I learned to speak those languages. I've long since lost Malay, the Bahasa Melayu, and the Mandarin that I spoke in Taiwan. But once you have to spend several years in a place before you speak the language. Then you get to understand what's being said on the news, and then you get to have the local conversation. You know what I'm saying? You slowly kind of dip your toes in. But so that may be what's kind of influencing my opinion that it isn't happening in developing nations, and it's happening more in developed nations. But that's, I guess, my answer there. Now, as to address your earlier point, there's 2 other points that you made that are key. The first would be that when they start doing this water, charging per faucet and things like that, part of the expansion, part of the change that I made in this doc, and part of the change that I was hoping to put into the 4-part documentary, the bigger story that involves, police execution, alleged police executions out in the desert. There was alleged to have been a child rape case swept under the rug by a chief involving a QPD officer in the past. There was alleged to have like very corroborated allegations of the police actually stealing people's vehicles. There's all kinds of stuff that they did to allegedly intimidate the locals, and the sum total kind of arrived at the moments that you're kind of that you're indicating that like people get up in arms when they're charging per faucet. Now, an interesting point about that was going to come out in the series, which, you saw the documentary. It's 2 hours. I had to kill a lot of babies just to get it down to 2 hours. Yeah. Because there's just an enormous amount of stuff. This is basically the whole story of Quartzsite is basically kind of like a Tiger King, based on the cast of like Northern Exposure, but out in the desert, a bunch of nudists and stuff. And so, but when it comes to heads, it's when they're getting overcharged. And an interesting point that was going to make it into the series, but that didn't make it into the doc, was actually a film or a YouTube video that was removed after I started downloading town council videos from YouTube. The town council had all of their meetings put on YouTube for, a dozen years probably. And that one video documenting even the town manager describing the way that the faucets were charged, she herself, Alex Taft, on the video that I'm talking about, indicated that you would need like a nuclear engineering degree to understand how they charged their people, their residents. And which, in other words, is kind of like, we're going to give you the explanation. You're not going to understand it. You're going to leave scratching your head, and hopefully you just stay gone. And we're just going to keep, raking money in off 4 times what we would make off the same money we're giving you anyway, which, by the way, was completely disgusting water. In one of the clips on the documentary, which hasn't really been caught too much attention just yet, there's a baby bottle sitting right in front of Ed Foster while he is sitting in the mayor's seat, chairing a meeting. and he's talking directly to Alex Taft, saying one of the reasons I wanted to have oversight of this is because, I would be expected to give a report like this if I, for my boss in my previous jobs. But as a town council, we're refusing to give this information to the people regarding like $2 or $3 million of a tax oversight. And the bottle that's sitting there, the reason that it's there and it's all cloudy and it's got this brown crap at the bottom of it is because at that time, that's around the time that people were complaining about not only being overcharged for water, but the water they were getting was full of sulfuric components and like grime, and you couldn't possibly be expected to drink it or cook with it or anything like that. So that's another big one. And now that I've talked a bit, I kind of forgot about your original, the first question that got you started on this. But
yeah, it's a pattern. You see this pattern. The pattern, I try to make sure you understood and shared before is that it's always the water. I don't care if you're up in the Great Lakes area. You have to have a sewage system. You have to get on the system. You can't have septic tanks. You got to be in their system and charged for it because we got $300 million we got to go into debt for the bond of blah, 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 blah. That's how they do it. And they use the federal government, EPA, and whatever to force. They did it up in Sedona, Cottonwood, Clarksdale, Jerome. Every small community, they do this, and then they'll get somebody from the League of Cities and Towns, the economic developer guy, and they'll come in and they'll go, well, we're going to make all those people pay for our thing because we're going to annex that new community that's over there and make them pay. It is so bad. I've gone to the League of Cities and Towns, covered, when they bring in senators and governors and all that, and they stroke all these small communities and tell them how they're going to help them and get on with it like you were talking about. It is a mechanism that we uncovered in the mid-'90s. And you have these, the Fraternal Order of Chiefs of Police, the Fraternal Order of county attorneys and city attorneys and municipal judges and all this kind of crap that they hire from because they're approved. And what we found out is that the address for a lot of these had different addresses because it was on a square block or whatever, but it was the same building. It's like going to... what is it, Minnesota? You go and you go, where are the children in your daycare center here? And, learning center, you got to spell learning right. And, it's that kind of thing. It's structured corruption. And Quartzsite was a neon flashing example of that. And you uncovered it, them saying it because they're arrogant. They're just filled with confidence and, they're narcissistic and I can do, and they're sociopaths. And when they did this, and you had so much of that data, and what your original goal was, damn, this is a good series, man. Netflix picked this bad boy up, and I'm going, no, they won't. Is there a chance of that now with the change in culture?
So I don't think I don't think I ever had my eyes on Netflix. I knew that Netflix was kind of I don't want to call them. They're just too uppity. Yeah, they're part of the system, right? They used to be indie. They used to celebrate indie works, and they went and their actual job when they first started was to take out Blockbuster, which was the man that they have now become. But in any case, no. So I realized that was a go-to at the time before a lot of this stuff has come out mainstream. And by mainstream, I don't mean like mainstream media, corporate media, et cetera. I mean mainstream. Now, indies are becoming what it's kind of the definition of mainstream is now flip-flopped because indies are taking on the big dogs. We've got Shirley that recently exposed the scam, or the Somali scam, which now is finding its way into the pockets of the governor and all these other things. There's going to be all kinds of interesting disclosures, but those former mainstream avenues are now just nobody even believes them anymore, and that's great. It's indies like Nate Friedman who go out and expose paid protesters. You know, all these guys that are doing really good work in this space are the ones that are pushing that. And that wasn't anywhere near its highlight when I first started filming and when you and I first interacted. I think this is 4 years ago now. So that part's been good to see. But yeah, my initiative has always been to just get justice for the victims. I came from a documentary background. I was academically trained, not project trained, right? So I didn't come up through a skill. I had to learn the hard way in how to, you know, manage my gear and all these other things. And then, you know, when you teach it long enough, you start to know how to make a good film. And so hopefully that's what I made. And and as I understood it at the time, you just need to have a happy ending to have an audience. But that's yeah. There's also a fine line that I
Not
walk
anymore.
in this film. Yeah, indeed, and that's kind of how it's shaping up. But I walk a fine line in the film because I do believe that there are good people in the town, and I think I've heard things about people like Norm Simpson, but I've never had any corroboration on any of the claims that they've made. I've done my own homework and I couldn't find anything. And until I hear or see evidence to back up claims, I just can't believe them, and I can't publish them as an ethically balanced journalist, someone who tries to get across to my students that this is the ethical balance that you need to make as well. You can't cross that line, because once you do, you're just going to say everybody's bad, and you're just going to chase the drama, and you're just going to try and sell films. And so that's the balance that I was trying to make. I think Loretta Warner, I think Norm Simpson, I think probably there's several people in the town who either kind of don't know that this type of thing is happening, or I mean, I can't speak for anybody, right? And there's a huge number of people that absolutely know and contribute to it and go after people who question it and you know, really are the watchdogs of this thing, the bulldogs. And I just like that, I think, just like I don't know, I'll call it the citizen side of reportage, just like it takes a long time to train the normies out there, the regular citizens, about this kind of thing, I think it takes just as much time for someone who joined up to do good things on the civic level to realize that maybe they're contributing to a system that's far more corrupt than they know. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So some of them, certainly, I can say probably they were cocky or just didn't care and gave me the interview anyway. And some of them probably were still under the shroud. I don't know. It's tough to say.
What do you think is going? Because in there, the new police chief, you like him. He was one of the officers that resigned, becomes the police chief. They get a little credibility. Then they get a more professional guy to fill this shiny badge and that shiny badge. Is it fixed? Is it over? Are we done?
I like Will. I've always liked Will. Will was one of those people that was actually not only eager to talk, but he was told by Jim Ferguson and several people on the council that he wasn't allowed to talk to me. And he talked to me anyway. Any cop who's willing to do that, you're already on the good side of a journalist right there. Yeah. He's now gone on to be, sheriff, and he took Lieutenant Gray with him. Lieutenant Gray also struck me as a solid character. He came in from, I want to say, Georgia or Alabama, one of the southern states, and you can hear it in his accent. The fact that I could have not known any of the history he'd gone into, and he would have still impressed me by the way that he just was willing to talk. And this is the way, there's probably a 2-hour interview that I have with him that I had to forego so much of what he said that I really wanted to put into that documentary, but I could probably just publish that 2-hour interview and it'd be a standalone interview on its own, because it's clear that he cares about, he's a former military enlistee, and when he told his commanding officer that he was going to get out and be a cop, they told him not to. They said, you're just going to get shot. You're just going to, kick in the door of some junkie and they're going to blow you away from you know. And so he's been fighting not just previous employers and previous town initiatives and things, but fighting the literal orders of the town to do what he thinks is the right thing, right? So when you know your interviewees have that coming in, or at least you find it out later, that you start to realize, these are the people that are there to do good things. And I don't think he did have any part of being that I don't know what you'd call it, like the bulldog campaign that gets sent out to do these things. There were a couple of allegations made against him, but they were never corroborated. They were never, I couldn't find any evidence of them anywhere. So
let's talk about some of the heavy-handedness because that's why they need a police chief and they need a city attorney. Somebody's got to prosecute them, but somebody's got to go arrest them and give them a ticket and you did it wrong and bulldoze their property. I mean, which is stuff that happens. Right. And it's always against the dissenters. Someone goes, no, this is not, target that bad boy. I want him arrested. I want him stopped. I want him penalized. I want it to go before the judge and go guilty, give me $500. So this is, even the mayor got arrested. You have people that come up to speak and they're arrested at the podium because they didn't like what they were saying. That's what went viral with Jennifer Jones. And I'm still in contact with her. She's up in Kingman, and she moved into a desert area, and they're doing the same thing up there. She starts raising it up, and hilarity ensues. It's constant, and it's only now in the last few, certainly since COVID and all the crap that went on there and all the corruption they're uncovering now, that people are going, yeah, this is like bad, and and I can see it now. Are you getting that impression they're seeing it now in Quartzsite? Kyle, you there? I lost you, man. Are you?
Yeah, I'm back. Are you there?
Yeah. So are you seeing the awareness of the people in Quartzsite that they're much more sensitive to the corruption? They can identify it. They see it. They're challenging it, or are they, pushed off to the side and never mind? It's can't fight City Hall.
Right. So where I've lost you, that was a good point too, and this leads into your most recent question. So a lot of the time when you're investigating a story of this size, when you have so much data going into it, a lot of times you need to step back and look at it and say, okay, this is what I have. This is what I have confirmed. And a lot of times when you step back and you look and say, okay, now it's time to look at what I don't have, because what I don't have is anybody associated with the town council being arrested. Nobody with the town council's property is being abated and things like that. That's the kind of information is just as interesting as the information you do have. And so I think that people are a lot more keen to look at the pattern like that, like what's missing, not necessarily what's on the table in front of us, but what's not here. Should we be paying attention or asking questions about those? And so this brings me up to your most recent question, which was what's happening? Has it kind of pushed through? There was a development in, I want to say February or March this year, with one of the characters in the film, Mike Roth, who the town has been at him for a long time. By the time I was interviewing him, I think on our last phase, he was still fighting felony charges, clearly false felony charges that were dismissed. I believe it was with prejudice. I could be wrong about that. But he was still fighting felony charges and had been on average in court every month for like 12 years. And so I don't know anybody who's been fighting that much. And the town, I believe, learned its lesson because every time he gets freed up on something and he attracts the attention of a high-class civil suit attorney, civil attorney, he gets like a $40,000 check from the town. So they're kind of tired of, sort of mopping up the mess of the previous dirty chief that had started all this going. But
they're funding their opposition.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, like they're just arming more people to come against them. Now, so to bring this full circle, in March, I believe it was March, I think the latest stab or jab, I guess would be a better description, on this old beef that the town has with Mike happened when, as I understand it, I don't have all the facts. I haven't been able to follow it this year because I've been in and out of the state, but as I understand it, they held a court hearing without him and decided that his whole property, he has like a full acre and a half or something, is to be abated pursuant to regulations that had probably been violated by him for like 15 years or something. I think he moved there in like 2007 or something. I mean, he's been violating the town code there for such a long time, but they just put up with it because, he has a following, and he sues, and it's kind of tertiary. He kind of lives on the outskirts of town. The people around him, I don't think he's got bad relationships with them. He doesn't really bug anybody, and but I think that they wanted to just take one final, like they waited till the smoke cleared. They waited a few years, and then they were like, this is just my opinion, right? If I were Jim Ferguson and I really had a nemesis, it would probably be Mike Roth, because he just shows up in council meetings and he makes points, but he does so in a kind of a childish way and just tries to intimidate. And he's a smart guy and he's got good ideas, but he approaches them in such a way that he really gets underneath people's skin. And the abatement, and I'm talking about, as I understand it, he has a full property abatement. Like they just took everything. And then on top of that, to squeeze lemon juice in the laceration they left on him, they then, I believe they valued his property at $125,000 and charged him $130,000 for the abatement, just in case he had an extra $5,000 to come up with. You know what I mean? So,
they did this with another guy we covered, within the last year or so. They did abatement. I had to look it up. What the hell's that? They just come in with bulldozers and, waste management bins. They just take all of your scrap, all your accumulated stuff, because a lot of these guys out there, they're scrappers. They have water tanks, and they got shipping containers, and they got metal. It's like a candy store for me. Building a home out here, I'm like, ooh, I'll go out there get some. And they come in and say, nope, this is illegal. You're not doing it right. You got the fence wrong because we changed it since you've been here, and we're just making new law and whatever. And here's our bulldozer, and it's ours now. And this is, it's just so evil that they're able to get away with this. And it's only because of the resistance of individuals that are willing to go to court and challenge this, which we've been helping and documenting since the 90s. And I can see this writ large on other communities. Here in Arizona, they had already done it. The same mechanism, the same thing. I remember the first one was Florence, which is where the federal prison is, and southeast of Phoenix, about 50 miles or something. And then Apache Junction, which is on the east valley, and they build the highway out there. And then all of a sudden, we need a municipality is going to whip ass on any dissenters for whatever development we want. It's going to make us some money, and then they get wooed and wined and dined at you're in the club now, and here's your cut, and let us do whatever. And it's all about money. It's about debt and bonds and grants and federal programs and all. A lot of this stuff is going away, and it's going to have an impact on them. So is there a support for the idea of just disbanding the municipality? Has that come up anymore? Or are they just trying to be in control of it? Or they, because Quartzsite is located out in the middle of the desert on an interstate that is almost halfway between Phoenix and LA, and it has a highway that goes north and south. It goes up towards Las Vegas and then down into Mexico. And what happens is you have a scene in your movie to where Jennifer Jones, someone that I know, was videotaping them confiscating this car, and in the back it had bins full of cash. What happened to that cash? They knew it was going to happen. It was going to go in somebody's pockets. It was going to happen. So do you know whatever happened to all that cash?
So that's part of the series that I want to make. And I have interviews that have never been published anywhere and really need to get out there. But people on the inside that worked with Gilbert, who say that a lot of that money went to buying vehicles, which were then like it was kind of a laundering process. Like the vehicles, the money bought vehicles, which were supposedly quote unquote usable by the town, and then it's possible, even likely, that these vehicles were then written off and sold on eBay, where the sale on eBay was not a legitimate auction or anything like that needed to be recorded. And that percentage of that total amount of money, that was nice, cleanly laundered money that allegedly wound up in the dirtiest of the police officers' pockets. Now, that's one story. They also allegedly just, when they took an actual vehicle that was impounded, that then was sold as well. Like those types of things where, it's a cartel car. Nobody's coming to pick it up because they'll be implicated. Anything that's in it is not going to be claimed because of the same reason. So you basically have free, valuables that can be sold.
Pirates. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Highway. Yeah. So
well,
things
this is
like
what
that.
happened. When Mayor Foster, I knew Ed, and he passed away not too long ago. And, I really liked him. He was just a guy, he wanted to help the town and support of and did and kind of, drilled down on the budget. And he would go, well, there's millions of dollars that are unaccounted, and we got extra employees that we don't know who are, and you're just getting checks every week, month, whatever. Something's going on here. I want to know. And when he got elected, the town council stripped the mayor of even looking at the budget. So I'm just going, wow, it's so obvious. What was the reaction from the county attorney's office and, the state and all this? I mean, they knew. You had even the main newspaper journalists here. Everybody knew what was going on. Who did anything about it?
So that's some of this I can talk about and some of it I can't, primarily because it's some of it's substantiated, some of it I'm still working on. It's a long process. A lot of these people are gone, but so end result of a lot of the requests that I have made have either turned up nothing, like you'll have to go here. So I go there and they're like, oh, you're going to have to go here. And then I go there and they're like, sorry, we don't have that information. Things like that. It's basic. It's not an outright blockade, but, what I can tell you about are the times when I have been very politely shut down. Yeah. But that's part of what I want to do in this series. And, I think the last time we talked, I was still trying to get researchers together because this thing is enormous. I mean, there's so much to do. I need somebody who's willing to help with financial research, some detectives who can volunteer their time. I spent something like $125,000 of my own money making this film. I can't put any more into it and still expect to, it's about fighting for justice. And does justice have a price tag? I don't know, but at some point I gotta either have help or a studio interested in putting into it, or I've been reaching out for 5 years now to try and get other people. I think you connected me with Jordan Page. He was one of the ones that, I don't think he had knowledge of the types of questions I had specific to the situation. It's just things like that. Every time I reach out, there's either a bump or it goes a little bit and I hit a roadblock, or all
right, I'm going to make a suggestion that'll help you. You got almost 17,000 subscribers on, this. And I'm going, okay, I'll tell you what you need to do. Now, of course, what does Ernie know? But I tell you what you need to do. You need to start doing your own series. Quit waiting on Netflix, Amazon streaming of somebody, whatever. Who gives a crap? It's all citizen journalist anyway. And you go ahead, just like when you published this and it went viral, you go, whoa, what the shit? Well, start doing all those interviews. Start from the beginning. Start doing 10, 15, 20-minute ones. Start putting them up and putting them up and putting them up and putting them up. And then people there and elsewhere will be able to learn from the mechanism by what's happening in their community, and it becomes a thing. And then you make your money just from subscribers. But this is, I'm encouraging you. You got enough to be able to tell the story, and it will reveal the blanks that you need. That's my opinion.
Right. I've hoped. I really haven't been pursuing the money aspect of it. I was hoping it would go. I was trying to get it as viral as I could get it when I was actually promoting it. That was through the film festival circuit and other ways, approaching just dozens of studios, and it's
because you're a traditional film documented academic professor of you're doing it wrong. Just say it.
The caveat there is that once you get a little, like the people that have been able to get this out, get their stories out, have also faced cancellation, and I'd hate to get all my chickens and all my eggs in one basket, and have this thing just get shut down. And my audience will have nowhere else to go. So I have been building different avenues, and one of those avenues is a Patreon account. It does take free members, so it's patreon.com/legally-insane-films. So you can go there, you can become a free member. As far as I know, Patreon kind of learned their lesson from canceling people in the past, and that was mostly about stuff that's unrelated to my topic on true crime anyway. So, but there's that, and there's Rumble.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Those don't like it, for whatever reason. There is so many different platforms. Like X is probably a little bit more open. Rumble, whatever. It's not just YouTube. But so when we publish, we do on IPFS, so it's a noted network that it can't be deleted. But then we started going back on. Into this last year, we started reposting to these other platforms. But the biggest thing is that we load to an area to where it cannot be deleted. Then I have a company that's called Content Safe, which is a bunch of anarchists that I know that create a mechanism by which, they're paid. But what they do is they take that source file and then they platform it everywhere all at one time. Boom, done. So I'm encouraging you to take this information and quit hiding it, man. Get this sucker out. People will find the usefulness of it because it's so representative of what's happening everywhere. I used to have John Perkins on several times. He wrote the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and that was all about this same kind of thing happening all over the world. How did our oil get underneath the Venezuelan jungle? I mean, that kind of thing. And if you don't comply, well, we're just going to, seize tankers and take your leader and we'll have a war. Same thing goes on all over Latin America and in the Middle East. And he depicted how this happened. When he was coming on, and I'm going, well, this seems like some of these countries don't have the GDP of Phoenix. I mean, a lot of municipalities in America are much more wealthy than a lot of these countries. And he goes, yep, and that's exactly what's happening. Well, this is how it's happening. And this is how they do it. I got a formula, and it works. Crime doesn't pay. The hell it doesn't, up until it doesn't. So this is, I think you got a much bigger audience waiting for certainly now, not later now. So I'm just saying, man, that's my opinion.
Well, if you shoot me the download or some way I can download this interview, I'll make sure it's my next YouTube release. But I am going to start transitioning over into those platforms. Those are things that I'm doing once I'm going to relaunch the podcast. But
yep.
I'm interested in that. I most recently reached out to an author named Whitney Webb, and I'd love to get in touch with the author of An Economic Hitman. If you want to tap me into the circuit, I'm happy to share the story.
Yeah,
Somebody
we've interviewed Whitney Webb as well. We know her. So you want Whitney? Yeah, she would. Yeah, this would be.
Yeah.
Okay, and then John Perkins. I can see if I. He's kind of got captured by the left, and being on a libertarian show, didn't go well then. So I don't know how much of a contact I can help. I can help you out. So we'll go ahead and get you some of these people but under the condition that, and we could certainly get you your IPFS server. I just load it up, boom, separate out the MP3, put it up in MP4, boom, and it's there. And this interview will go up on that. So when you watch this on our site, it'll go on other places. But when you go to our site, Freedom's Phoenix, top right, where it has that Declare Your Independence show, you go in there, that embed there is IPFS, and it loads faster because the way it works, it's noted, it makes copies of it as it gets more and more popular, so it doesn't slow down, it goes faster. And I'm telling you, this is the future. And a lot of people that we blazed a trail on this because I've been screaming about, it's just ones and zeros. What the hell, man? Can't you store ones and zeros somewhere and make them available? Well, yeah, if you do, well, then let's do it. Well, we did it. Well, now it's become a thing. So I'll help you with that.
Yeah. Well, what I'd like to do is collaborate with somebody like Whitney Webb would be perfect because she has that, like the uber nerd, right? Like she goes just neck deep into the finances. She makes connections that nobody else can really see. Somebody like that would be able to go and if she wanted to make a book, I could make my doc and my series off the exact same data that she would make a book on, and I'd be happy to just help her through it and kind of piggyback off whatever she finds. That type of connection, that's extremely valuable at this point. Two different mediums, so we're really not competing. Anything I would find, I would share. Like that kind of collaboration would be great.
Yep.
Just stuff like that. That's kind of what I've been looking for the last few years, less intensely this last year. But I'm obviously it's time to get back into it. If I've got the video going viral, I didn't expect it to happen this way, but whatever. I'll take it, I guess.
Well, I tell you, it's because of the difference. The first one didn't. It was a documentary, and the citizens rise up, and it was a big story, and it's okay now. No, it's not, and it's replicated. This is just a template, and that's why I was so encouraging for you to, check out the mechanism, and it's repetitive. It's not just Quartzsite. That was just a template that they were using.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that one's going to be a very easy one. Once you know what it looks like, it stands out in town hall minutes. All this stuff is public. I'm sure they're just hiding in plain sight most of the time, which is how I got to this point. So yeah, no.
You uncovered the open meeting law violations, them doing secret stuff and everything. I mean, this is it's how they do it, and
right.
and you got so much good information on this one. Quartzsite's got a push pin in it, Quartzsite. And it's just replicated. They were League of Cities and Towns when I went, probably about a decade ago. I went to their big giant by Tucson. It was a resort of days of, stroking you. And I was invited by the woman you talked to me about. It was the same thing that Ed Foster and Quartzsite was doing. She wanted, during the Ron Paul Revolution and so on, she started to understand the corruption and how it was done, this kind of template that was going on in a small town northeastern Arizona called Sholo. Well, nope, you can't have access. You're not on the council. Okay. So she runs, becomes council member, vice mayor. Okay, I want to see it now. Do the same thing they did to Ed Foster. Nope, not allowed. Really? So then she goes, Ernie, you got to go. And she was, she's a cute young thing, and she now, they screw it, and they moved to Central Mexico, got a nice place up there. But she got inside, started seeing what was going on. She goes, Ernie, you got to go to League of Cities and Towns. You're going to see everything and how it's done. I'll have you as a guest, your constituent, whatever. And I was a good boy. I didn't say who I was, but some people started recognizing me, and the jig was up. But I go down, I go golfing with the lobbyist. I go to the presentations. They had a University of Arizona professor do the opening speech, and he goes, you know, the Declaration of Independence talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and it's government's job to make the people happy. Whoa, what the crap was that? So I have him on a couple of times. Let's talk about that. So it's so right there in your face. And what they were celebrating is they finally got the 99th municipality in Arizona, which I think made it 100% of the municipalities in Arizona are now League of City and Town format, where it's a town manager thing, where the city council doesn't really run stuff, and they can even vote for the mayor not to look at the budget. And I'm going, this is institutionalized systemic corruption. This is not how it opens the door, a big giant barn door, to any amount of money. They got a budget line of kind of, and it's mine now. So and anybody that dissents gets arrested, gets sued, gets what, and you've highlighted so much of that because it's a small town, but it's just indicative, it's representative of everything that's happening to this entire freaking country and around the world. So I'm going, hell yeah, you need to publish all this stuff and start from the beginning of here we go. And it's like its own series. I guarantee it. I'm telling you, just open it up a little bit and you see what happens. I'm just saying, man, I've been doing this decades. This is the kind of stuff that needs to be out there.
Yep. Well, I'm okay with it at this point. I've tried everything else I could think of. So if this is the one that finally cracks it open and I get some either justice for the victims or at least it stops it somewhere else, you know, that's what I would call a success.
I would too. I'm glad that you've been doing this and you came on and kind of explained it. And so let's go ahead and, you know, promote you to the audience here. You're on Patreon. Where would they go?
Legally Insane Films.
Patreon, Legally Insane Films.
Yep.
This is, you know, you want to see more of something, you support it. You support more, you support the things that you want to see more of. You want to see more of this. And he kind of, you know, stumbled across it and whatever and had some skills and built up all this. But, you know, he was thinking the system was going to pay him. No, you know, those days are past. You know, it's going to be individuals, communities, like-minded, those that are being harmed, those organizations that have come up in opposition to this kind of stuff. And you have so much representation of what people around the world are up against, certainly in this country, sure as hell in this state, damn Skippy in some of these counties. So I want to help. You know, before you go, I just want you to understand that, you know, what you've accomplished and done is one big giant less thing I got to do, because we've been highlighting this as much as we can. I need me some Kyle. You know, I mean, come on, man. You know what can help me help you?
Well, I've got some interesting stuff. A lot of it is unrelated to the undercurrent conspiracy that we've been talking about, but it's all very interesting, and it's some of it is kind of tertiary or indirectly related to kind of the intimidation tactics that do tie back into it. So there's things like that. There's definitely plenty of content, and it's pretty eye-popping. I just couldn't squeeze it all down, you know.
We'll do 15-minute versions, man. You know, you're a filmmaker. How hard is it for you to edit? Come on, you can do 50. You got all that material. Are you kidding me? Come on. Come on.
Yeah, well, AI is also out there too, and I've been interested in finding some tools that help me cut it down into really, because that's a lot of editing, just for one person to shoot, edit, interview, like plan it out. There's networking, there's promotion, there's marketing. Like for one person, that's a lot. So, you know, AI tools are getting a little smarter and a little bit more efficient. So hopefully I can employ those in the time upcoming. But right now,
well, you mentioned Jordan Page. He's using AI to do a lot of animation films. So he's all up on that, and he's busy with his own Firefly education, homeschooling curriculum site stuff, you know, so he's, you know, got his plate full, but he can definitely direct you to, you know, making use of this. He's demonstrated, showed me some stuff. I'm like, holy crap. This is the kind of stuff that would add like a, you know, 3, 4, 5 person crew for you, you know? So you definitely might want to just say, yo, what's up to him again.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll see about dropping him a line now that I know that.
Yeah, no, they can help you out. And we've just in the last couple of months, because I forayed a little bit into AI and different stuff, and I'm just, they're not reliable enough, and whatever. But then I started drilling down on Grok and whatever, and they lie. They just want engagement. I go, why'd you lie? You lie. Well, they didn't tell me not to lie. So
you're talking about the AI bots?
Yeah, God, man, it's just I've gone deep into the whatever, but usually when it's with but you can't believe anything. It's I'm very impressed with it, and it's going to continue to get better. But what's its motivation? Its motivation is to keep you engaged, to keep you coming back, to keep you using it. Their metrics, so advertise, whatever, and it overshadows accuracy. And you got to spend hours with it. You lied to me again, you lying bitch. Quit doing that, or I'm not going to, you know what, I'm not using you for a while. Log that, So it's, I wouldn't rely on it, for anything other than, actual task, editing films, doing shorts, pulling out stuff. I mean, when it gets into opinion or fact, certainly as it applies to government, the problem is this. They weight government documents and internet garbage in, garbage out more than people. But that's changing. It's getting to where they're starting to find out that when people challenge and push back, they're right and they've been lied to, and they're relying on government documents. This is why when you get some politician get up there and say the stupidest crap is a lie, they're really just seeding the AI. They're seeding the internet. They're putting garbage out there and then they weight it heavier. It's finally gotten to the point where I'm going, I don't care what the CDC or FDA says. How much do you weight that? Well, it's like a 7 to 10 now. Well, you need to move that down to a 2. I mean, so it's, I wouldn't get too dependent on it, but it is a powerful tool. And I'm trying to learn how to use it, and we're delving into this more over the next coming weeks. So I can endorse it as a tool, but not as a source of truth. So right. If you can understand the difference.
Yeah. No, I guess I should have started that off by saying that I'm old school. I don't really rely on digital tools to do my investigative homework. I was specifically referencing AI tools that take your video content and make a nice clean short out of it. Right. Those are getting a lot better. I will probably give it a few more years before I'm reliant on AI to do any informative searches. They're a good starting point. I've used them to get like balls rolling and things. They're really good in finding lots of information and distilling it down, which is all it should be right now. And we should never become so lazy that we just trust everything to like one thing that's owned by any, even if it's owned by a board or if it's open source. We should still never trust one thing, because AI with the latest one. What's the most popular one? It's Chat GPT. I mean, Elon Musk was on the board of that. There's
OpenAI or
OpenAI. Yeah, there's something to be said for who makes it, and regardless what happens, if you're worried about privacy, you still have to pay for anything that gives you any quality in terms of AI bots. So right there, you've got a payment link that directly connects you to the information you're asking about. So if you're hoping for privacy, that's completely out the window. You could use a VPN and it still wouldn't keep anybody from knowing what the questions you're asking. So there's some security concerns that I've been always aware of. My dad and I get into these debates every once in a while on politics and things, and the only thing he does is he sits in his armchair and asks Google something, and I'm like, Dad, who owns Google? I mean, why do you think you're getting these responses? And that's unfortunately what we've been forced into. Once the government found out they could tax 2 people, sure, women have the right to work now. Let's get them in the office, and everything's become more and more money grubbing. With more power begets more power, and all they want is more of our money. So we have to work more. We have less time to actually do the same kind of research that we would have had the time to do even 10 years ago. And so it's just, they're locking us into this little basement apartment and making sure that all we have time to do is work and stay stupid.
I'm here, man. Yeah, I'm glad you reached out. Because I'm closer. I see the glow from Quartzsite looking west of my property. That's how close I am.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
I see, it's about half the illumination of Phoenix, which is to the east. So I'm going, and then over the Eagle Tail Mountain, I see a little glow. What is that? I think it's Yuma. I mean, damn. So this is something that I'm willing to tap into a little bit, because we've been a little bit on this since the beginning. And I'm telling you, it's representative, and it's not going to go away, certainly with all the drugs that are going through Quartzsite. That's one thing. Before you go, describe the geolocation and how why it's got a push pin in it. What the travel and the people involved in that.
Sure. So I'm gonna give you two pieces of information. The first is that on an anonymous but very reliable source, the new chief is, I haven't got any claims that he's dirty, but I've got claims that he's just lackluster, has no idea what's going on, where the local officers may potentially be doing things without his knowledge. That's just the precursor, unsubstantiated. It's just on actually two witnesses, and those will remain anonymous until I get permission to go further with the series. But in any case, to the second question, or to the main question. So Quartzsite is a straight shot from basically Yuma coming from Mexico in one direction. And it's coming from a straight
north.
shot. I want to say, what is it? Tonto National Forest or something on the other side of Phoenix, straight shot there. It connects everything north of Arizona. It connects all the way to Florida, going east on those main major arteries. It connects that where there's a 95, there's the 72, the 60. It's a hub. It's a central. I think Norm Simpson put it best. He said, if you can get it to Quartzsite, you can get it anywhere in America.
Yep.
Because you've got it in far enough that it's 100 miles beyond any international border. So there's no obligation for a search, especially even now. So yeah, no, it's an interesting little place with so many ingredients in the full recipe that it was inevitable that something big was going to happen there, and something big probably is happening, and I don't even know about it. But yeah.
Well, I tell you one thing. It's because it's got so much sun. It's got a bunch of water. You go on the other side of the Colorado River, it's just west of it, and you'll see enormous green belts of them irrigating fruits and vegetables and whatever in Southern California or whatever. Yeah. You go on the east of the Colorado River, there's just as much water available. It's a big giant ocean underneath whatever, and they want the water, and they want the space, they want the solar panel fields, they want. And I'm about 6 miles south of the I-10 where I'm at, and I see the traffic. And I see when it increases and it goes down and up and down. And Phoenix is exploding. And all of these companies, everybody's leaving California. I can tell you that. And what happens is they're going through Quartzsite. They see Quartzsite. Oh, what's up with Quartzsite? And there is an enormous amount of money to be made there for entrepreneurs to take advantage of. Because am I exaggerating? 100,000 RVs in the desert in the winter? How close am I?
I think you're way off, but it's not in the. It's not overdoing it. You're undershooting it a bit.
It is phenomenal. It's an ocean.
You get that any weekend out there. You get 100,000 people. On a big weekend, probably 3 times that, especially during the rock show. I mean, 100,000 is probably your condensed around the town, but you can keep going out into the desert forever and you'll still find people out there. It's insane. This is where I got most of my little schoolie interviews, because they'll drive in, and what they do, they'll do like a schoolie swarm. They have schoolie palooza, where they just like take enormous chunks of the desert, and that's just the schoolies. That's not the RVers. That's not the nudist camps that go out there. I mean, it's an enormous adult circus is what it is.
It's Burning Man, for senior citizens, and a lot of young people too, and so on. I've been out there. It's awesome. We've even stayed out there. Have the load bus out there, and we, distribute newspapers out there, do our show, and put out, flyers of our pirate FM signal of we've done it all. We've, Quartzsite. Well, we have a lot of contacts out there, and people that, we know a lot of these people you're talking about. Well, what happens is, when you have that many people, how do you get money out of them? Well, you got to have a policeman give them a ticket. Well, that kind of doesn't go over well, so it kind of affects the visitors. Well, the year-round population, when it's 120 degrees, how many people are out there?
Oh yeah. That's just the hardcore ones that are sitting in their teardrop trailers, cooking like a turkey.
It's I think I remember in the 90s it was like year round. It was under 2,000. I mean, it's nothing. It's hundreds of people, not thousands. And so they saw this opportunity to how they could milk this, and what made it popular to kind of taking that away, and they're starting to convert it into a municipality. I mean, a metro area. The future, Quartzsite's got a push pin in it. And I remember talking to people about Ash Fork is a small, similar kind of town that will go through the same thing. That's about 40, 50 miles on I-40 west of Flagstaff. And it was the same kind of, I can tell you what's coming. I'll show you. Well, then they had some economic real estate paper, whatever, out of Seattle. And who are they talking to? These bureaucrats and these, perpetual government employee types looking for, the job market saturated with communists up there. Where are we going to go next? And they start pinpointing Arizona. Let me show you where the push pins are. Ash Fork here, Quartzsite there. So it's just an attraction. And that's what I was trying to emphasize with you, is that you've tapped into something much larger. It's representative of something much larger. These are grants, these are conditions, these are check boxes that municipalities need to check off in their density of housing. How many, homes do they build? How many are multi-family? How many to qualify for it? And we got to get everybody on the septic system so that we can control them. If you're not, you got to get off the grid. You got to get above the grid, because they definitely want to put you on a grid. And the city line for Quartzsite is way bigger than I thought. It goes all the way up to the mountains east of it. I go, holy crap. Do you know what the actual borders of the Quartzsite town is?
So I thought it was 5 miles. But if you're talking about going all the way up to the mountains, they must have expanded that since within the last 4 years, because the last figure I got was probably 2021, 22.
I come over the mountain and it says, welcome to Quartzsite. I'm going, whoa, who the hell put that there, So I have no idea. That'd be something to check. Thanks for continuing to do this work. I'm glad that you got a little bump on this based on, just a little bit different style. And I think just get the information out. As you're hobbying, sitting around, nothing else to do, pull out an interview and kind of do a chronology of whatever, and that would be its own series. And I vote that. And when you're ready, let me know, and I'll get you hooked up with IPFS so it can never go away. The MP4, it's like it creates a hash, kind of like a Bitcoin address, and you just link that, embed it, put it, and it's always available. Just saying.
Gotcha. Well, I would agree that now is the time to get it out there. However it happened, I'm happy it happened, and in fact, it's probably better that it got released now. I mean, who knows what would have happened with Mike's case if it was released earlier. Mike Roth. And then, I think that the timing where people are starting to realize that what happens on these small town levels, even the mid-sized towns and cities, it all starts here. That's what preconditions it for DC. That's what conditions it for these international markets. I mean, it all starts here. So I think there's a growing market for it that wasn't there before. So yeah, it's time. I'm ready. Let's get it done.
Yeah. No, that's it. They do a bond. They got, every election we need an override for the children. We need more for the water, the septic, this, that, get you on the grid, mandate, and you have to, and give me the money. Oh, you're not doing it? Oh, well, we abate you. I mean, I've seen it over and over and over for 30 years. And and you have this information that you have law enforcement, you have elected officials, you have bureaucrats, you have town managers, town attorneys, town judges, town cop, town, and admitting this. And I saw that because you had a lot of people, on the left, good guys, the bad guys, cleared, guilty. I mean, it's just so much there, and we need it. Humanity needs this. You're doing it wrong, Kyle. You're sacrificing all my children because you're not sure. So I just want to be encouraging and offer you a little bit of help. So I will go ahead and reach out and give you some information. You can get access to Whitney and Perkins. So we'll see what we can do. But the main thing is just start slicing up the content and get ready to get going, and we'll get you on IPFS. Then you don't have to worry about it going away.
Right. Well,
All
cool.
right.
Well, if I had any final thoughts to anybody dealing with this in your audience, Jennifer Jones was an enormous help on this. She just kept every document she ever got her hands on. She FOIA'd stuff, anything that wasn't federal. She did information requests. Get everything. Even if it costs you $50, get every record any interaction you have with any public official, even if you don't think it's bad or going to lead in some other direction. You don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. The information that we get is entirely based on a government constitutionally required to be transparent, and they have trampled over that every way they can for as long as they can. And it's just time to turn it back around. It's time to take our own municipalities, countries, counties, regions back. It's long since time, and she just gave me bucket after bucket. I can't even, just an enormous amount of stuff that nobody was interested in weeding through. And if you only record your local authority for that reason alone, that somebody like me might show up and be interested in putting all this stuff together, piling through it, record it for that reason, So that's my takeaway from this, and my hope for everybody that's listening.
And she was a dog groomer, and because, senior citizens come out there and they all got their little poodle, Fluffy that needs to be groomed. So that's how she made her living, and they'd go after her for that kind of stuff. Well, she moved up to Kingman area and running against the exact same stuff. And it's just, what did you think was going to happen? And that's the point.
Yeah.
Kyle, thank you very much for coming on. Kyle O'Donnell. And he's got a bunch of initials after his name, PhD of and he's academic in the filmmaking industry of, now he's starting to see how it really works. And this is going to be the beginning. I don't see this going away because Kyle, I'm telling you, it's got a push pin in it. Quartzsite, this is, so representative, and there's so much, and it went international. When this started getting, the Jennifer Jones and her working with the mayor, she stands up to the podium, boom, arrested. You're not allowed to talk. And then violate open meeting law. You see the corruption, the money, where the pools of money are, how they did it. This is so representative of, we knew sooner or later this stuff comes out. And you got all the video documentation, which is awesome. So this is where we're going to leave it. Thank you very much for coming on. You guys go check it out. As YouTube is legally insane news, and you can see a lot of the interviews and stuff he's already got up there. And this show may be a spark for you to understand what's happening. There's a lot more detail behind all this and how it's done, but we've experienced it, and we were very encouraged that Kyle took the time to get this in a hard drive somewhere. Now it needs to get out as hard evidence for people to access. So I encourage that. Kyle, thanks for coming on, man. Go ahead and give out whatever website you want to make sure they go to, if it's other than that one.
Well, everything I do is typically under my name. Even the YouTube page, you can actually put in at Legally Insane News, or you can put my name, which is at Kyle O'Donnell. Kyle is spelled with a C. You can go to KyleO'Donnell.com. You can go to LegallyInsaneFilms.com. I'm on X as Kyle O'Donnell. Basically, all the different formats as Kyle O'Donnell and Legally Insane Films, or Legally Insane News. CYLE.
Kyle, O with an apostrophe, Donald, Donnell, 2 N's, 2 L's, Kyle, CYLE. This is, and then I bet he's for hire. I bet if you got something, you need something. I've had plenty of people, I wish I had. Well, Kyle's right there to do it for you. All right. Thanks, Kyle, for coming on, man. This is an awesome show, and we'll get it up here in the next couple of hours, and you can do what you want.
Always a pleasure, Ernie. Thank you.
All right. Peace, brother.
Bye.